The arrival detention center Zeta-9 floated in the darkness music of space, like a monument to order and control. The massive structure housed the most dangerous criminals from 40 different species across the Galactic Coalition. Its walls were reinforced with titanium alloys. Its security systems were considered impenetrable, and its warden, Krell of the Vorthian Empire, had maintained a perfect record for 15 cycles. No escapes, no riots, no incidents that couldn't be contained. Within minutes, Krell took pride in this achievement, displaying his commendations prominently in his office, where visiting officials could admire them. The Vorians were a species that valued hierarchy and discipline above all else. They stood nearly 8 ft tall, with crystalline exoskeletons that shifted colors based on their emotional state. Krell's exterior currently glowed a calm azure, reflecting his confidence as he reviewed the manifest for incoming transfers. His 4 eyes scanned the data pad with practiced efficiency, noting the species, crimes, and threat levels of each new prisoner. Most were familiar, predictable, even a Drainer convicted of weapons trafficking, a Zelthian caught running illegal genetic modifications, 3 pirates who had attacked a merchant convoy. Standard additions to his facility. Then his eyes fixed on the final entry, and his crystalline surface flickered to a pale yellow, the color of uncertainty. Human male designation: Marcus Chin. Crime classified threat level maximum. Special handling required. Krell's mandibles clicked together in thought. He had heard stories about humans, of course everyone had. They were the newest species to join the Galactic Coalition, having achieved faster-than-light travel only 3 decades ago. The tales varied wildly. Some claimed humans were brilliant negotiators and natural leaders. Others whispered that they were unpredictable, violent, and driven by emotions that made no logical sense to other species. Krell had never personally dealt with a human prisoner. The species was still relatively rare in the greater galaxy, and their criminals even more so. He accessed the Coalition database, searching for any additional information about this Marcus Chin. The file was heavily redacted, with entire sections blocked by military-grade encryption. What little remained painted a contradictory picture. Age 34 Earth. Years, height 61 in human measurements. Weight approximately 200 lb. Former occupation also classified. The only concrete detail was a note from the arresting officers written in the clipped professional language of Coalition security forces. It read simply, subject offered no resistance during apprehension. Extreme caution advised. Do not underestimate. The transport shuttle arrived 3 hours later, docking with the precision that marked all Coalition operations. Krell made his way to the receiving bay, accompanied by 6 of his most experienced guards. They were all Vorians, selected for their ability to remain calm under pressure and their unwavering loyalty to protocol. The bay doors hissed open, releasing a cloud of cool mist as the pressure equalized. 2 Coalition officers emerged first, their armor gleaming under the harsh lights. Between them walked the human, Marcus Chin. Did not look particularly threatening at first glance. He was neither the largest nor the most physically imposing being Krell had ever processed. His skin was a warm tan color, his hair dark and cut short, his face marked by what humans called a beard, though it was neatly trimmed. He Wore standard prisoner transport. Restraints, heavy bands around his wrists and ankles that limited his movement to shuffling steps, but it was his eyes that caught Krell's attention. They were dark, almost black, and they moved constantly, taking in every detail of his surroundings with an intensity that suggested he was cataloging, analyzing, planning. The human met Krell's gaze without flinching, without the fear or defiance the warden had come to expect from new arrivals. There was something else there, something Krell couldn't quite identify, recognition, perhaps, or assessment. It was the look of someone who had already begun several moves ahead in a game Krell didn't yet know he was playing. The transfer was completed with minimal conversation. The coalition officers seemed eager to leave, which Krell found unusual. Normally they would stay for refreshments, exchange news from other sectors, perhaps boast about their successful apprehension. Instead they handed over the documentation, confirmed the biometric scan, and departed with it. 15 minutes, Marcus was processed. According to standard procedure, his restraints were removed temporarily for the medical scan, which revealed nothing unusual. His physiology matched the human baseline documented in coalition records. 2 hearts would have been suspicious. Extra organs might have indicated genetic modification, but Marcus Chin appeared to be an entirely ordinary member of his species. The psychological evaluation was equally unremarkable. He answered questions in a calm, measured tone, his voice neither aggressive nor submissive. He confirmed his identity, acknowledged the charges against him without elaborating, and expressed no interest in legal representation or appeals. The guards escorted him to cell block Gamma, the section reserved for maximum security prisoners. His cell was identical to all the others, a 12x8 FT space with a sleep platform, sanitation unit, and a small table. The walls were transparent aluminum, allowing constant observation while preventing any physical contact with other prisoners. As the force field activated, sealing Marcus inside, Krell observed him from the control center. The human walked to the center of his cell, turned slowly in a complete circle, as if memorizing every angle, and then sat on the sleep platform with his back against the wall. Word spread quickly through the prison population. A human had arrived. For species that lived for centuries, news was a valuable commodity, and the arrival of such an unusual prisoner generated immediate interest in the common areas where prisoners were allowed supervised interaction. Conversations buzzed with speculation. The drainer wondered if the human was a warrior. The pirates debated whether humans made good fighters or just got lucky. A group of Zelthians known for their analytical minds attempted to access any available data on human combat capabilities. In cell block Gamma, the reactions were more visceral. This was where the truly dangerous prisoners were housed. Individuals who had committed crimes so severe that even the famously tolerant coalition had no choice but to imprison them. Thorax, a Krellian gang leader, serving 12 consecutive life sentences for mass murder, was the undisputed dominant force in the block. His species was naturally aggressive, standing 7 feet tall with 4 muscular arms and skin-like armored plates. He had killed 3 prisoners in his first week, establishing his authority through brutal violence. Thorax approached Marcus' cell that first evening, flanked by two of his followers. The human hadn't moved from his position on the sleep platform, sitting perfectly still, with his hands resting on his knees, thorax pressed against the force field barrier, his face twisted into what passed for a Krellian smile, displaying rows of serrated teeth designed for tearing flesh. He spoke in galactic standard, the common language used throughout the coalition, his voice a deep rumble that echoed through the cell block. Little human, you in my territory. Now everything here belongs to me. Your food, your safety, your life. You will give me half of everything you receive. And you will show proper respect. Do you understand? Marcus looked up slowly, his dark eyes meeting Thorax's aggressive glare. For a long moment he said nothing, simply studying the gang leader with that same intense focus he had shown during processing. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet, almost gentle, but it carried clearly through the block. I understand that you believe you are in control here. That's fine. Belief is important. Thorax's followers laughed, assuming the human was submitting, but Thorax himself felt something unexpected, a cold sensation that ran through his armored body. Despite the temperature-controlled environment, there was no fear in the human's voice, no submission, no anger. Just a statement of fact delivered with absolute certainty. The Krellian snarled, slamming his fists against the force field, which crackled but held firm. You will learn respect, human. Tomorrow, during recreation time, you will learn what happens to those who displease me. Marcus simply nodded once, then closed his eyes as if dismissing the entire confrontation. Thorax stalked away, his pride wounded, but his confidence intact. He had broken stronger beings than this small human. Tomorrow would be entertaining, but as the lights dimmed for the sleep cycle, several prisoners who had witnessed the exchange found themselves unable to rest. There was something about the human's calm, the way he had looked at Thorax, that triggered instincts developed over millions of years of evolution. It was the look of a predator assessing prey, of a hunter who had already planned to kill. In the control center, Krell reviewed the interaction on the security footage, his crystalline surface shifting to a troubled green. The human's behavior didn't match any profile in his experience. Prisoner either submitted to dominant forces or challenged them directly. Marcus Chin had done neither. He had simply acknowledged reality while suggesting it might not be the reality Thorax believed in. Krell made a note in his log to increase surveillance on cell block Gamma. Something told him that tomorrow's recreation time would be significant. He just didn't know how significant or how everything he thought he understood about running a perfect prison was about to change forever. The disappearances begin. Morning arrived at detention centers 8 and 9 with the artificial precision that marked all things in space. The lights gradually increased to simulate dawn, a concession to the circadian rhythms of species that had evolved under natural stars. Prisoners stirred in their cells, beginning another day identical to the thousands that had come before and the thousands that would follow in cell block Gamma. However, the atmosphere was different. Word had spread about the confrontation between Thorax and the human, and recreation time promised entertainment. Violence was one of the few diversions available to those who would never see freedom again. Warden Krell arrived at his office early, as was his habit, and immediately noticed the alert flashing on his primary Console. His crystalline surface shifted to yellow as he accessed the security. Report, cell G47 thoraxis cell was showing an anomaly, the biometric sensors that constantly monitored each prisoner's vital signs were registering. Nothing, complete absence. Krell's four eyes narrowed as he pulled up the visual feed from the cell, empty, the sleep platform was undisturbed, the sanitation unit and used the small table exactly where it had always been, but thorax, all 7 FT and 400 lb of him, was simply gone. Krell's surface flashed to orange, the color of alarm, as he initiated emergency protocols. Within seconds, his senior staff had assembled in the control center, their own crystalline bodies reflecting various shades of concern and confusion. Chief Security Officer Vin, whose surface was a deep purple indicating intense focus, ran diagnostic after diagnostic on the cell systems. The force field had never been deactivated. The structural integrity of the walls showed no breaches. The air recycling system showed no evidence of anything passing through the ventilation shafts, which were too small for a Krellian anyway. It's impossible, Vin stated, his voice carrying the harmonics that indicated absolute certainty. Vorthian communication. The cell was sealed. No one entered, no one exited. The prisoner simply ceased to exist. Between the hours of 200 and 400, Krell reviewed the footage himself, watching it frame by frame. At 1:57, thorax was visible on his sleep platform, his chest rising and falling with breath. At 200, the automated system performed its hourly scan and logged his presence. At 400, the next scan found nothing. Between those 2 hours, the visual feed showed an empty cell, no movement, no shadows, no indication that anything had occurred. It was as if thorax had been erased from reality itself. The warden made the decision to place cell block Gamma under temporary lockdown while they investigated. Prisoners remained their cells, recreation time canceled, all movement restricted. Krell assembled a team to physically inspect thorax's cell, equipped with scanning devices capable of detecting residual energy signatures, biological traces, even dimensional anomalies. They found nothing. The cell was clean, undisturbed, completely ordinary. Thorax's few personal possessions remained exactly where he had left them. His meal from the previous evening sat half-eaten on his table. As the investigation continued, Krell found himself drawn to the security feed from Marcus Chen's cell. The human had not reacted to the lockdown announcement. He had risen at the normal time, performed a series of physical exercises that Krell recognized as standard human calisthenics, consumed his morning meal with methodical efficiency, and then returned to sitting on his sleep platform. His dark eyes were open, staring at nothing in particular, his expression neutral. Every 15 minutes he would stand, walk the perimeter of his cell, and return to his position. Routine was precise, almost mechanical, yet there was an awareness in his movements that suggested he was far from the meditative state his stillness implied. Krell decided a direct interview was necessary. He made his way to cell block Gamma, accompanied by 4 guards, and Vin. The other prisoners watched from their cells as the warden stopped before Marcus containment. The human looked up, making eye contact immediately, and Krell felt that same unsettling sensation he had experienced during processing. Those dark eyes seemed to look through him, cataloging weaknesses, identifying vulnerabilities, calculating probabilities. Prison. Chin Krello began, his voice carrying the formal tones of official inquiry. You are aware that another prisoner has disappeared from this block, Thorax. Marcus replied, his voice calm. The Krellian who threatened me yesterday. Yes, I'm aware. Your security teams have been quite active. Do you have any information regarding his disappearance? Marcus tilted his head slightly, a gesture that seemed thoughtful. I have observations, Warden. Whether they constitute information is for you to determine. Krello's surface flickered between yellow and orange. Explain. Observations. Thorax was a violent individual who had killed multiple beings. He ruled through fear and intimidation. He made enemies in any ecosystem. Predators who become too aggressive eventually encounter something higher on the food chain. Marcus paused, his expression never changing, or they encounter something that simply refuses to be prey. Are you suggesting another prisoner is responsible? I'm suggesting that actions have consequences. Warden Thorax believed he was untouchable. He was wrong. Whether his wrongness resulted in intervention from another prisoner, from the universe correcting an imbalance, or from something else entirely, I cannot say. I only observe that justice in one form or another finds a way. The conversation left Krello deeply unsettled. The human had not provided any useful information, yet his words carried implications that resonated with something primal in the warden's consciousness. He ordered increased surveillance on all prisoners, particularly those who might have had conflicts with Thorax. The investigation continued throughout the day, but yielded nothing. By evening, Krello was forced to file a preliminary report with Coalition Command, noting that a prisoner had vanished under impossible circumstances and that the investigation was ongoing. 3 days past the lockdown remained in effect, and tension in cell Block Gamma increased exponentially. Prisoners who had previously moved with casual confidence now watched their surroundings constantly. Conversations became whispered, furtive. Even the guards seemed nervous, though they would never admit it. Krello spent his nights reviewing footage, searching for any detail he might have missed. The mystery of Thorax's disappearance consumed him, affecting his sleep patterns and causing his crystalline surface to remain in troubled shades of yellow and green. On the 4th morning after Thorax vanished, a second alert screamed across Krell's console. Cell G23, another prisoner gone. This time it was Sarduk, a Venian enforcer who had been serving time for executing an entire merchant crew. Sarduk had also made threats toward Marcus, though less directly than Thorax. He had simply made comments during the brief periods when prisoners could communicate through the force field, suggesting that humans were weak and that he would enjoy demonstrating this fact. Krello felt his surface flash to red, the color of extreme stress, as he ran to the control center. The situation was identical. Sealed cell, no breaches, biometric sensors showing complete absence between the hours of 200 and 400, the same 2-hour window. Sarduk had simply ceased to exist. The physical inspection team found his cell as undisturbed as Thorax's had been. Personal effects in place, no signs of struggle, no evidence of anything unusual occurring. Panic began to spread through the prison. Population, prisoners who had never shown fear now demanded protective custody. Some requested transfers to other facilities. Others became violent, attacking guards during routine procedures as if being placed in solitary confinement might somehow protect them from whatever was happening. Krello ordered a complete lockdown of the entire facility. No prisoner movement whatsoever. All recreation canceled indefinitely. Meals delivered by automated systems. Human contact minimized to absolute necessity. Coalition Command responded to his reports with a team of specialists. They arrived within 18 hours, a group of investigators representing multiple species and disciplines. There were forensic experts who could detect biological traces at the molecular level, energy specialists who could identify power fluctuations that standard equipment missed, even a Thrinarian psychic who claimed to sense residual emotional imprints. They spent 4 days examining every sign of both cells, interviewing prisoners, reviewing footage, running scenarios. Their conclusion was unanimous and unhelpful. The disappearances were impossible, yet they had occurred. The psychic provided one additional detail that made Krell's surface turn almost white with dread. She reported sensing what she called an absence of closure in both cells. The prisoners had not died, she claimed. Death left an imprint, a finality that psychics could detect. These prisoners had been removed, relocated to somewhere else. She could not say where or how, only that they no longer existed in normal space. On the 7th day after Thorax's disappearance, Krello made the decision to confront Marcus directly. He had the human brought to an interrogation room, a space designed to be completely secure and monitored by every sensor the facility possessed. Marcus entered with the same calm demeanor he had maintained since arrival, his movements unhurried, his expression neutral. He sat when directed, folded his hands on the table, and waited. 2 prisoners are gone. Krello began dispensing with formality. Both made threats toward you. Both vanished impossibly. I do not believe in coincidence. Marcus nodded slowly. Neither do I, Warden. Then explain what is happening. I can't explain what I don't fully understand myself, but I can tell you what I believe. Marcus leaned forward slightly, his dark eyes locked onto Krell's. Your prison is designed to contain beings who can be contained by physical means, walls, force fields, monitoring systems. You have protocols for every species in the coalition. You know their strengths, their weaknesses, how they think, how they act, but you don't understand humans yet. Not really. Enlighten me, Krello said, his voice tight with frustration. Humans don't just exist in the physical dimension. Warden, we exist in the dimension of will, of determination, of absolute refusal to accept imposed limitations. When you cage a Krellian, you cage their body. When you cage a human, you challenge them to transcend the cage. Some of us have learned to do exactly that. Marcus smiled, a cold expression that didn't reach his eyes. Thorax and Sardok threatened me. They believed they were predators and I was prey. They were wrong, and now they're learning what it means to face something that doesn't recognize their authority. Are you claiming responsibility for their disappearances? I'm claiming nothing, Warden. I'm simply observing that in any system there are rules, physical rules, social rules, universal rules, and then there are beings who operate outside Those rules because they've learned to access levels of reality that others don't even know exist. Your prison is perfect for containing normal beings, but nothing is perfect for containing human determination. Krello felt genuine fear for the first time in his career. The human's words made no logical sense, yet they carried a weight of truth that bypassed reason and spoke directly to instinct. He terminated the interview and returned Marcus to his cell. That night Krello barely slept, his mind racing through impossible scenarios. Around 300, he received an alert that would change everything. Cell G47. Thorax's old cell showed biometric readings. Something was there. The security team rushed to investigate, and what they found would haunt Krello for the rest of his life. Thorax was back, but he was changed. His armored skin was pale, almost translucent. His 4 eyes were wide with terror, and when he tried to speak, no words came out, only a whimpering sound that no Krellian should ever make. Whatever had taken him had returned him broken, a living warning to anyone who might challenge the wrong. Prey. In his cell, Marcus' chin continued his routine, sitting perfectly still, his dark eyes open, waiting, and every prisoner in detention center Zeta 9 now understood a fundamental truth about humans that the galaxy was only beginning to learn. They were not just another species to be cataloged and controlled. They were something far more dangerous. They were survivors who refused to be victims, beings who would rewrite reality itself rather than accept defeat. And the quiet ones, the ones who sat still and watched and waited, those were the most dangerous of